How control replaces trust. A manager tells her team they can work from home 2 days a week. Everyone says thank you. It feels like a benefit. A few weeks go by. Then she asks people to put their 2 days into a shared calendar. She says it's just so the team knows who's around. People add their names to the calendar. A month later, she sends a message. She says she noticed some people are picking Monday and Friday. She says that's fine, but maybe it makes more sense to spread it out. She suggests Tuesday and Thursday might work better for collaboration. People change their days. Then she starts asking for updates at the end of each remote day. Just a quick summary of what got done. People send the updates. The updates get longer. She starts replying with questions. Did this take all day? Could this have been done in the office? People start explaining their time in more detail. 6 months later, someone asks if they can add a third day. The manager says no. She says the team hasn't shown they can manage the 2 days responsibly. She says maybe in the future, if things improve. The person doesn't ask again. What started as a benefit became something that requires justification. The manager didn't take the benefit away. She just added layers. Each layer seemed reasonable. But together, they changed what working from home meant. It stopped being a trust. It became a privilege you had to earn over and over. This is how control replaces trust. What is happening here? Trust means you assume someone will do the right thing without watching them. Control means you create systems to make sure they do the right thing, whether they want to or not. The shift from trust to control does not happen all at once. It happens in small additions. A new rule, a new form, a new approval step, a new report. Each one makes sense when you look at it alone. But when you add them all together, the message changes. The message becomes, I do not believe you will do this correctly unless I make you. The person adding the controls usually does not say that out loud. They say they are improving clarity. They say they are creating accountability. They say they are making sure everyone is aligned. These words sound neutral, but the effect is not neutral. The effect is that people stop acting like they are trusted because they are not. Control does not feel like punishment at first. It feels like structure. It feels like someone is trying to help. But over time, it becomes clear that the structure is not there to support you. It is there to limit you. How the dynamic forms. Control usually begins with a small imbalance. One person has authority, one person has information, one person has access to resources. One person decides what happens next. That imbalance is normal in many situations, but it creates the opportunity for control to grow. The dynamic starts when the person with more power stops assuming good intent. Maybe someone made a mistake. Maybe someone asked for something the person in power did not want to give. Maybe the person in power just got nervous. Whatever the reason, they decide they need more oversight. They add a rule. The rule seems small. You have to ask before you do this thing you used to just do. You have to report when you finish that task. You have to copy someone on that email. The rule feels like it is about one situation, but it does not stay about one situation. It becomes the new normal. Once the rule exists, it creates a record. Now there is data. The person in control can look at the data. They can see patterns. They can see who is following the rule and who is not. They can see who asked for exceptions. The rule that seemed like it was about clarity becomes a tool for comparison. It becomes a way to measure people. Then something else happens. Someone does not follow the new rule perfectly. Maybe they forgot. Maybe they misunderstood. It does not matter. The person in control notices. They send a reminder. The reminder is polite, but it is also a message. The message is, I am watching. After that, more rules come faster. Each one is a response to something. Someone was late, so now everyone has to confirm their schedule the day before. Someone made an error, so now everyone has to get approval before starting. Someone asked a question, so now everyone has to read a document first. The rules multiply. They stop being about preventing problems. They start being about proving you are following the rules. How it changes communication. When control replaces trust, people stop talking the same way. They start talking like they are being monitored, because they are. A person who feels trusted will tell you when something is not working. They will say, "This process does not make sense," or "I found a better way to do this," or "I need help with this part." They share problems early because they assume you want to know. A person who feels controlled will not say those things. They will wait. They will try to fix it themselves. They will only tell you when the problem is too big to hide. And when they do tell you, they will explain it in a way that makes it sound smaller than it is. They will say, "It's almost done," or "It's not a big issue," or "I have it under control." They are not lying. They are protecting themselves. The person in control notices this. They think, "People are not being honest with me." They think, "I need more check-ins." They add more meetings. They ask for more updates. They say they want transparency. But what they are actually asking for is proof. Proof that you are working. Proof that you are not hiding anything. Proof that you are worth trusting. This creates a loop. The more control you add, the less people share. The less people share, the more control you think you need. The dynamic feeds itself. Silence changes too. In a relationship built on trust, silence is fine. If someone does not reply right away, you assume they are busy. If someone does not give you a full explanation, you assume they have a reason. You wait, you give space. In a relationship built on control, silence is a problem. If someone does not reply quickly, you follow up. If someone does not explain themselves fully, you ask more questions. You do not wait. Waiting feels risky. You need to know what is happening right now. The person being controlled learns this. They learn that silence will be interpreted badly. So they fill the silence. They send extra updates. They over-explain. They reply fast even when they do not have an answer yet. They are not doing this because they want to. They are doing it because not doing it has consequences. The tone of messages changes too. A person who feels trusted writes simply. They say, "I will have this to you by Thursday." They do not add extra detail unless you ask. They assume you believe them. A person who feels controlled writes differently. They say, "I will have this to you by Thursday. I am finishing the second section today, and will start the third tomorrow morning. I have already reviewed the first part twice and made the changes we discussed." They are not just telling you the deadline, they are showing their work. They are proving the deadline is real. The person in control often does not notice they are causing this. They think the person is just being thorough. They might even like it. They think this person is really on top of things. But what they are actually seeing is fear. fear that if you do not show every step, someone will assume you are not doing anything. How people misread what is happening. When you watch someone behave under control, it is easy to think you are seeing their personality. You think, this person needs a lot of oversight. You think, this person is not very self-motivated. You think, this person always needs reminders. But you are not seeing personality. You are seeing adaptation. A manager has an employee who asks permission for everything. The employee will not make a decision without checking first. The manager thinks this person lacks confidence. The manager thinks this person is not ready for more responsibility. But what the manager does not see is that 6 months ago, this person made a decision on their own. The manager did not like it. The manager did not say, "Do not do that again." The manager said, "Next time, let me know before you move forward." The employee heard that. They stopped deciding. Now the employee asks about everything, and the manager thinks the employee has always been this way. The manager does not connect the behavior to the rule. The rule feels like it was about one situation, but the employee applied it to all situations because that is safer. This happens in families too. A teenager does not tell their parents anything. The parents think, our kid does not trust us. The parents think, our kid is secretive. The parents think, this is just how teenagers are. But if you go back, you will find moments where the teenager did share something, and the parents responded with worry, or questions, or new rules. The teenager learned that sharing leads to restrictions. So they stopped sharing. The parents do not remember those moments. They remember wanting to protect their child. They remember trying to help. They do not remember that help felt like control. And now they think their child's silence is a personality trait. The same thing happens in friendships. One person always waits for the other to make plans. One person never suggests anything. The person who always plans thinks, my friend is passive. They think, my friend does not care as much about this friendship. But if you ask, you might find out that the friend suggested something once, and it got shot down, or ignored, or changed into something else. The friend learned their suggestions do not matter, so they stopped making them. The person who does all the planning does not see this. They just see someone who never takes initiative. They do not connect the current silence to the past responses. And so the dynamic continues. People also misread the person who is adding control. They think, this person is controlling because they are anxious, or this person is controlling because they are a perfectionist. And sometimes that is true. But often, the person adding control thinks they are being responsible. They think they are preventing problems. They think they are doing their job. A teacher requires students to turn in drafts before the final paper. The teacher checks the drafts. The teacher gives notes. The teacher requires a revised draft. Then another one. The students start to think the teacher does not trust them. But the teacher thinks, I am helping them improve. I am making sure they do not fail. The teacher does not see that the process has become about compliance. The students are not learning to write. They are learning to write what the teacher wants. The teacher would be surprised to hear the students feel controlled. The teacher thinks the students should feel supported. And this is the gap. The person adding control almost never thinks of it as control. They think of it as care, or standards, or accountability. They have good reasons for every rule, but the rules still have the same effect. How the pattern sustains itself. Control stays in place because it removes the information you would need to stop controlling. When you trust someone, you see what they do when no one is watching. You see their judgment. You see their priorities. You see how they solve problems. You get information about who they are when they have freedom. When you control someone, you do not see any of that. You see what they do when someone is watching. You see them follow the process. You see them meet the requirements. You do not learn whether they would have done the right thing on their own, because you never let them try. This makes it very hard to remove control. The person in control thinks, I cannot give them freedom yet, because I do not know if they are ready. But the only way to know if they are ready is to give them freedom. The control prevents the test it is supposed to prepare them for. A parent does not let their teenager go out without checking in every hour. The parent says, I need to know you are safe. The parent says, when you show me you are responsible, I will give you more freedom. But the teenager cannot show responsibility while being monitored constantly. Responsibility is what you do when no one is checking. The parent never sees that. So the parent never feels safe letting go. The same thing happens at work. A manager requires detailed reports from their team. The manager says, I need to know you are on track. The manager says, once I see consistent progress, I will not need as many updates. But the updates replace the work that would show progress. People spend time reporting instead of doing. The manager sees the reports and thinks, good, they are staying on top of things. The manager does not see that the reports are preventing the outcomes the manager actually wants. Control also sustains itself because it becomes part of the relationship. Once control is in place, removing it feels risky. It feels like you are lowering your standards. It feels like you are letting things slide. A teacher has always collected homework every day. One year, the teacher thinks, maybe I do not need to do this. Maybe students would work harder if they had more autonomy. But the teacher worries. What if students stop doing the work? What if grades drop? What if parents complain? The teacher decides it is safer to keep collecting homework. The system stays the same. And the students never get a chance to show what they would do without daily collection. Maybe some of them would do less work. But maybe some of them would do more. Maybe some of them would learn to manage their own time. The teacher will never know. The person being controlled also helps sustain the pattern, but not on purpose. Once you adapt to control, you stop practicing the skills that would let you handle freedom. If someone always tells you what to do, you stop deciding. If someone always checks your work, you stop checking it yourself. If someone always follows up, you stop following up on your own. You are not trying to become dependent. You are just responding to the system. But the result is the same. You become less capable. And that makes the person controlling you think they were right to control you in the first place. A manager micromanages a project. The employee stops thinking ahead. The employee waits for instructions. The employee does exactly what is asked, and nothing more. The manager sees this and thinks, see, this person needs me to manage them closely. The manager does not see that the close management created the behavior. If the manager stepped back, the employee might struggle at first. The employee might make mistakes. But over time, the employee would start thinking ahead again. They would start asking questions earlier. They would start solving small problems on their own. But the manager does not step back. The manager thinks stepping back would make things worse. And so the employee never gets better. How the pattern can break. The pattern breaks when someone changes what they respond to. If you are the person being controlled, you can start sharing information differently. You can stop over-explaining. You can stop trying to prove yourself in every message. You can give simple answers and see what happens. This feels risky. You have learned that simple answers lead to more questions. You have learned that not showing your work leads to doubt. But if you keep playing by the rules of control, the control never ends. You have to test whether the control is still necessary. Sometimes it is. Sometimes the person controlling you will respond to your simple answer with more questions. They will ask for details. They will follow up. And then you know the control is still active. You have to decide if you want to stay in that situation. But sometimes the person does not follow up. Sometimes they just say, okay. And you realize the control was partly habit. It was partly your fear of what would happen if you stopped performing. When you stop performing, you find out what is actually required. If you are the person adding control, you can start testing trust. You can remove one rule and see what happens. You do not have to remove everything at once. You can pick the smallest rule, the one that feels least risky. You can stop asking for that report. You can stop requiring that approval. You can tell people they do not need to check in as often. Then you wait. You watch what happens when people have a little more room. Some people will not change. They are used to the old system. They will keep doing things the same way. That is fine. You are not trying to force independence. You are trying to create space for it. Some people will change. They will make decisions they used to ask about. They will solve problems they used to report. You will see judgment you did not know they had. And that gives you new information. You learn who is ready for more freedom. You learn what actually needs oversight and what does not. The hard part is not reacting to every mistake. When you give people freedom, they will do things differently than you would. Some of those things will be fine. Some will be better. Some will be worse. If you react to every small mistake by adding the rule back, you teach people that freedom is temporary. You teach them that one error means the end of trust. You have to let people learn. You have to let small mistakes happen without turning them into new policies. A mistake is just a mistake. It is not proof that control was right all along. This is hard for people who are used to controlling. It feels like you are being careless. It feels like you are letting standards drop. But standards and control are not the same thing. You can have high standards and still give people room to meet them in their own way. A parent stops checking their teenager's homework. The parent says, "I trust you to manage this." The teenager forgets an assignment. The grade drops. The parent wants to go back to checking. That is the instinct. But if the parent goes back to checking, the teenager learns nothing. The teenager learns, "I cannot handle this on my own. Mom was right to monitor me." If the parent does not go back to checking, something different happens. The teenager feels the consequence. The low grade matters. The teenager realizes they need a system. Maybe they set a reminder. Maybe they write things down. Maybe they ask the teacher for help. They learn to manage themselves. It takes longer. It is messier. But it actually builds the skill. The pattern can also break when someone names it. Not in an angry way, not in an accusing way, just in a clear way. An employee says to their manager, "I notice I need approval for a lot of things I used to decide on my own. Is there something I should be doing differently?" This is not a complaint, it is a question. but it makes the manager think. The manager might not have realized how many approvals they added. The manager might not have noticed the pattern. Now they have to decide if the approvals are still necessary. A teenager says to their parent, "I feel like you do not think I can make good choices." The parent's first instinct is to say that is not true. But if the parent stops and thinks, they might realize the teenager is right. The parent might realize they have been stepping in too often. Naming the pattern does not fix it immediately, but it makes it visible. Once the pattern is visible, people can choose. They can choose to keep doing it, or they can choose to try something different. But if the pattern stays invisible, no one chooses. It just continues. Closing reflection. Control and trust are both responses to uncertainty. You do not know what will happen, so you either make sure it goes a certain way, or you let someone else decide and see what they do. The choice between control and trust is not about who is right. It is about what you are optimizing for. If you want consistency, control works. If you want growth, you need trust. Most people do not set out to replace trust with control. They set out to prevent problems. But prevention becomes prediction. Prediction becomes monitoring. Monitoring becomes enforcement. And enforcement becomes the relationship. You see this everywhere in workplaces where people are capable but never get to prove it. In families where love looks like rules. In friendships where one person manages and the other performs. No one chose this version of the relationship, but many small choices built it. The way out is not to remove all structure. Structure is not the same as control. Structure is a shared agreement about how things work. Control is when one person enforces the agreement and the other has no say in whether it continues. The way out is to notice when you stop asking whether someone will do the right thing and start making sure they cannot do the wrong thing. That is the moment. That is when trust is being replaced. And once you notice it, you can ask, is this necessary? Is this temporary? Or is this who we are now? Most of the time, people do not ask. They just add another layer, another rule, another check, and the relationship becomes smaller. The person being controlled becomes less capable. The person controlling becomes more certain that control is necessary. And both people forget what it was like when they assumed the best of each other. But it does not have to stay that way. You can stop adding layers. You can remove one. You can give someone space and see what they do with it. You can let a moment pass without stepping in. You can let someone struggle without rescuing them. You can let someone succeed without taking credit for managing them. And when you do that, you find out what trust actually looks like. It does not look like perfection. It does not look like someone doing everything the way you would. It looks like someone figuring it out. It looks like mistakes that get corrected. It looks like problems that get solved without you. It looks like a relationship where both people are whole.